Welcome to the Chlorine King podcast, where your host, Eric Taylor, will discuss tips for the do-it-yourselfer, answer listeners' questions, conduct product reviews, and host special guests from the pool industry. Grab your swimsuits and let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to another great episode of the Chlorine King podcast. Tonight's guest is from National Pool Route Sales, and he's going to walk us through the process of buying or selling from a pool route brokerage. But not only that, why it's better to go through a brokerage company versus buying from an individual. Before we get into that, though, let's answer a question as we always do. I had a unique call this week. Not that it's a rare thing, as it does happen, but it's a pretty big misconception of what the cause actually is. So this person called looking for service from my company. I started asking some questions about what's going on with their pool, and they said it's fine except the last time they went swimming their hair turned green. So I dug further and found that the pool was recently green, and they dumped in 6 bottles of Algaecide hoping that it would clear it up. Let me sidestep here for a moment to say that Algaecide is a preventative of algae, not a killer. So if you have a green pool, you'll want to wait on the Algaecide until after it's cleared up to prevent it from happening again versus dumping a bunch in hoping it'll solve your problem, because it won't. 6 bottles of Algaecide, I asked. I then found out that she used a copper-based Algaecide, so she thought she was doing good and killing algae, but all she did was add a bunch of copper to her pool. Whoops, that leads to the misconception here. The misconception about green hair is people think it's from high chlorine. Sure, the chlorine can be high, but it's not the cause of it, but more so just a contributing factor. What happens in the situation is if you have a pool with high copper and treat it with chlorine or your salt cell making the chlorine, it bonds with the protein in your hair, and that's what results in the green hair. Chlorine is only half the equation. What you should do in this situation anyways is confirm the copper with a test, then go through the appropriate processes to eliminate the metal from your pool water. And most importantly, guys, refrain from putting in 6 bottles of copper Algaecide at once. That'll cause you more problems than good. So hopefully that'll help you if you have green hair from a swimming pool. Let's go ahead and talk with our guest now. All right, everyone, I'm excited to have on the line Chris Webb from National Pool Route Sales. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing really well, Eric. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. I'd like to just open this up by letting you introduce yourself and see how you got in the industry and how you ended up at National Pool Route Sales.
Sure thing. Really, the industry was by accident. National Pool Route Sales is a broker, and we are hyper-focused on helping people buy and sell their pool routes. And so I've been with National Pool Route Sales for just a couple of years, came in from the traditional broker side, and it is an eye opener. It is the original, the granddaddy of brokers. So it's really interesting to see how this all came about.
Awesome, yeah. So that's cool. You ended up there. So when you say conventional, you meant from real estate brokerage, or?
Well, no, from other business brokerages. Just the not generic. It sounds wrong, but generalist business brokers who take on pizza parlors as well as florists as well as lawn cutting companies. They'll take them all on. And so to move from a generalist to what we do, which is hyper focused, it's really neat.
Well, cool. Thanks for sharing that. Well, let's go ahead and get to the meat and potatoes and ask you a few questions and rattle your brain a little bit. The first one, how did selling pool routes actually come to be, and why would a service company want to sell their route?
Sure. It was actually the founder of our company, Charles Baird, probably 30 years or more. He was, again, a general business broker, and in Southern California, and sold these pool routes, and saw that, and really it's the best, really, honestly, best business in the world. And I don't know if you guys believe it or not, it is. It is the best way to get to the American dream. But he noticed there were deficiencies of how every guy runs his route differently, but everyone does the same thing. Mm-hmm. You show up, clean, treat, move to the next location. But from there, everyone runs things differently. And it was really difficult to price and value these businesses when they have such tremendous value on the top end. So really, he developed a pricing structure that we all know of a multiple of whatever your monthly recurring service is, and came up with that multiple and really just focused in on selling pool routes and then helping folks improve their business and make more money. So it's and that's been kind of our push. Our marketing side is helping guys make more money. It's the best testimonial we could get is I was able to buy a route and make money and be successful. But then to move to the next, why would someone want to sell a route? Well, there's a few reasons, of course. I'm moving, I'm retiring, and want to sell everything. But I have plenty of folks that have maybe they have 150, and of that 150 addresses they go to. And yeah, I have these 100 that are in Pinellas County, like where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But I have these other ones that are way out in Wesley Chapter, or they're spread around, and I don't want to go that way. I want to concentrate closer to my core. So call us up. Hey, could you please market these 50 over here? I'm still going to be doing my others. I just want to sell these 50. So we have plenty of times that people sell partial routes, part of their routes, or the pieces that they don't want, because they market well. They do it right, and they're not going to turn down business, but sometimes it gets bigger. Some guys get to 80 accounts and say, no, I like 80. That's my sweet spot, and so I get rid of what's over 80 because I turn that into cash, and I put that in the pool guy 401k.
I see.
And then move on.
I see. Yeah, I mean, because I could see very easily you could get to a point where you just can't handle anymore, but your phone's still blowing up. So, I mean, you could sell some off to where you can accept more business.
Right, and that's because it's that the first biggest hurdle is hiring the next person.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? A lot of people don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with an employee. I like running my schedule. I like this. This is good for me. But on the other hand, there's folks that get past, I want to hire one, and then they're off to the races. And I can't wait to hire 6 more guys.
Yeah.
But that's why this industry is great. You can be as big as you want or as small as you want.
That's very true. I agree with that. So, next question: why would someone want to deal with a broker such as National Pool Route Sales, versus trying to sell it themselves? You go on Craigslist and you find pool routes for sale all the time. I mean, can't they make more on their own by selling on Craigslist or even at the distributor?
Not necessarily. We try to get folks with the market, and every market has a different multiple that it commands. Miami compared to Tampa, compared to Jacksonville, compared to Fort Myers. I'm speaking Florida. Florida cities.
Mm-hmm.
But they all have different multiples and different pluses and minuses. But to go out there and sell on your own, most likely they don't. They're either going to get equal or less than posting it or Craiglisting it. Of going with a broker, and I love us, but in general, a broker is a firewall in the process. The Craigslist is notorious for tire kickers and lowballers. They just are. Will you take 3 times? No, I won't. And
Mm-hmm.
why don't you just take up an hour of my time talking to you? So we're a firewall in there, vetting both sides of the process. Meaning we vet the sellers by talking to you and learning about the company and getting a good feel for where you're at, the type it is. But likewise, we vet those buyers. When they come in, they go through us, and we make sure that they're informed, tell them about the industry, tell them things in general, and then verify that they actually have the money. These are cash transactions. We're not going to talk about, unless it gets real big, owner financing. No, it's a cash deal. We need to make sure that there's money that you have the money. And so we get rid of those things. And we also act in the middle of any kind of negotiations or any discussion. The transaction is the beginning of your relationship, because you have to transition these accounts, and maintaining a good relationship, buyer and seller, helps everything. Helps the buyer get what they paid for, and helps the seller get the money the money for the accounts that they're selling.
Now, listeners, what Chris is talking about is very important, because I'm sure he's not aware of this, but I actually bought some accounts off Craigslist, Chris, and it was miserable. It got to the point where after I found out, they were crap accounts, it was too late, and I was just sort of up the creek without a paddle. So, having a brokerage company in there that vets the seller more so than the buyer is super important for the buyer, so they know they're not getting a bunch of crap accounts.
Right, and that's why also in we hold money in escrow. Meaning, so when the deal is done, we hold a percentage back, like off the top. It's held in its own escrow account, a protected legal escrow account. And because you have training, you need to go, because you don't ride on the and that's another Craigslist problem. Don't let people ride on your account, on your route with you. Don't let them go into your customer's backyard or go to the addresses. Or what if they step through a skimmer lid and break their ankle? Who's liable?
Good point.
Just one thing in the brain is just we protect your list, the list of these, because that's the product. But after, you need to go on training. You need to see every account. You need to take a picture of every pool first time through, and nice if it's pool and equipment, and then you get trained, and then we release a little money after the training to make sure that went smoothly, and then we have a guarantee period to make sure that these accounts transfer to the buyer, and then also in our contract, we have a refined contract over decades to protect both sides, to make sure that, hey, I'm, as a seller, I'm not being responsible for a buyer's mess up, and as a buyer, I'm getting what I paid for. I paid for $5,000 a month in service, and I've done it correctly, and that's what I need to have. All
right, so moving on, Chris, walk me through the process of how it works dealing with national pool route sales, from the first contact to the end of the guarantee period, where it's just good luck, we wish you luck.
Well, that's I'll start from that way. The end of the process is where we don't just say good luck, at least to a buyer. Charles Baird started. I wrote a book too about the Millionaire Pool Man program.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And it's all about making money. And he's converted. He moved away from the book and moved to a video presentation. So we have it on a teachable site, the Charles Baird Consulting site. It's 165 relatively short videos about making money, about techniques to raise your prices, techniques to move people from weekly to bi-weekly, how to have a 100% closing rate when you get there to bid a job. We stick with those buyers. They get that when they buy through us. They get that for a year. That video series, they can access it for a year. And likewise, we're on the phone if a problem comes up, because we need you to be successful. So it's never like that traditional, you bought a house, here's your keys, good luck, God bless, and there's your the broker's license plate as they drive down the road. We stick with you throughout the process. But on the buyer side, and I'll be brief because there's the buyer side and the seller side. We're selling through us. It's pretty straightforward. As you get in touch, we talk and get through what the multiple might be for your market. We have a questionnaire to fill out, just the details of your route, and get you signed up. We don't lock people in for a real long time. We try to sell these things in a handful of months, or less. But on the buyer, you come in, give us a call. You look at our website. It's www.poolroutesales.com.
Okay.
Always up-to-date list of all the listings that we have. It's always the most current because they're always in and out. So you go in, you have that route. We'll talk about it in general. We want to move forward. This sounds great. we'll get you an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so we can talk more in depth and give you details about the account. If things go well there, then we get on a call, buyer, seller, and agent. Talk about it, go through all the details, and everyone kind of feels each other out. Sounding good? Sounds like good, where I want to be, how it's set up. Yeah, let's move forward. Then you get together face-to-face, buyer and seller. You go through, you verify their payment history. Here's the list of accounts. These are their payment history. And just so you can see, yeah, these are legit accounts. This is how they're paying. No one's in arrears. Within reason.
And that's very important because that doesn't happen on Craigslist, for the record.
Right, and it is just to confirm. And now, and y'all, your listeners, there's always going to be someone that signed up yesterday as much as there's someone that's been with them for 10 years. It just every day there's inflows and outflows of any list of accounts. So
there's no minimum requirement to I've had this account for 3 months. It's good to sell now.
Yeah, there's not a minimum, but that comes with vetting. When we were working with these listings, saying how old are these accounts? How they're all under 6 months. No, that's at the jagged edge if they're all that way.
Gotcha.
It's one thing if you have 10%. That's one thing. But that's where we take a look and feel them out. We fired listings as well as not taking buyers. Just because we sell hundreds a year. We sold in our history over 10,000, probably over 15,000 routes.
Wow.
So we've seen a lot of people and talked to a lot of people. And our end goal is, of course, our best testimonial is someone that's successful, buys a route, and has a successful business afterwards. And that's what we strive for.
Awesome. So, how does working, I know we've already touched on this a little bit, but how does working with a broker protect both the buyer and seller more specifically versus, an individual to individual, like Craigslist, for instance?
Sure. Well, and, one is, it's, like I said, the firewall, and make sure people aren't wasting time, especially when, you're on the route, they want to ride with you, just killing time. But really it's on the contract side. We have a proper specific contract to pool service routes and the guarantee and what is not guaranteed and language to that extent. Likewise, after the sale and during that guarantee period, we're there and holding that escrow and also negotiating any difficulties that might come up. So you have I'm a transaction broker. Can't be on anyone's side, but we don't have a dog in the hunt. But we're there to make sure that it works out.
So really, you keep emotions and stuff that could be decided on emotion only sort of out of the equation. So there's no rash decisions between both the buyer and the seller.
Right, and then of course the contract that is well written that eliminates a lot of you said this and you said that and you promised that and all these things is no. They're going to be on paper and they're going to be known, and there's a path to a resolution. Not just I'm going to sue you. Oh no, I'm going to sue you. And it's like, come on, everyone.
Yeah, let's be adults here.
Yeah, but that's the thing, and that's that protections, the vetting. It's the filtering, and then it's the contract and the follow-up. I've had routes that are for sale that they have a buddy that's going to buy it, or an acquaintance, but kind of a buddy. And they're like, no, Chris, I want you in this thing. I want him to remain my buddy. So that's great. When he asks a question, you send it through us, and we'll filter it and firewall. So it's never you saying no to your buddy. It's us saying, no, we can't get that. We'll work on something else.
Gotcha.
And because the relationship has to continue past the sale.
I gotcha. So that makes sense. That seems to really, provide, benefits to both the buyer and seller. So that's important when working with a broker. So what do you have to say, Chris, about brokers promising to make more money for the seller? I mean, is that just sort of
it's kind of and this is kind of advanced fare, but there are other brokers that specialize in pool routes, and the thing is for the guys the guys and gals listening, what matters is not the promise on the front. What matters is the money in your pocket at the end of the deal, for going to the guarantee and making sure that the losses, that any people that don't transfer, that those are kept at a minimum, and there's agreement. There's an agreement in place to take care of that. So you have folks out there saying, well, I'm going to get you this much money and lock them up for extended period of time while their route just sits. And at the end of the day, they get negotiated down, or through the guarantee period, it's not managed properly, that there isn't a good transition, letters and introductions, and 25% of the route doesn't transfer to the new owner. Well, the seller, you owe that money to the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Either you need to replace those accounts or refund it. And at the end of the day, when that guarantee is over, how much money do you have left after refunding people for losses?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a classic, you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk kind of thing.
Right. And so that's the hardest, the most difficult thing is, or the problem, the danger zone is the transition. And so we have our set schedule of how we want to see that. We have sample letters to introduce the new person from the old person. There's lots of techniques to make sure that these homeowners happily move from John Smith pools to Frank Jones pools. And it usually works out very well. You could say 4% is a kind of a low average for a successful transfer.
Yeah, I mean, and the bottom line is, if it didn't work well, you guys still wouldn't be in business after 10 or 15,000 sold routes.
Right, and if it doesn't, again, having the buyer have us get through it, transition, have a successful business is our goal and the way we get longevity. And it's selfish. We want you to be successful, grow your business, charge a lot of money, and then when you want to buy a winter home in the mountains, come back to us and sell 150 accounts.
Hey, if I do that down the road, I'll be sending you a picture saying, thanks, Chris, thanks for this home.
Honestly, it happens more than you think. And these aren't guys that flip. These aren't the ones that build and flip, which gets real hairy real quick.
Mm-hmm.
As a business model. But the folks that do a good job have a good set of employees and market well, treat their customers well, and they grow, and they'll pop off a number of accounts. They'll pop off 50 accounts, and on a yearly or a little more than that, and those 50 accounts can put $50,000 in their pocket for the pool guy 401k fund.
Exactly.
And you rinse and repeat that enough times, and you have quite a nest egg. You're not just pushing a pole. You're actually sitting on a nice amount of money that you can, stop pushing the pole one day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that rhetoric that pool guys are broke and desperate, I mean, that's how I thought pool guys were growing up, but I've found now I'm in the business, it's the furthest thing from the truth.
It's an unbelievable business. That's why, go back to the original one of you're just out there, $85 a month, how do you make any money than that? And no one realized, no, that's just the recurring. It's a whole world of things after that, of repairs and maintenance and
inspections,
and referrals. There's a lot of ways to make money, more so than any other business, and that's why it's valuable to a lot of people. That recurring revenue is great, but that extra layer of income that you have open to you, if you're a professional, if you do it right. I mean, if you show up on time, don't leak oil, care about your customers, you will always have a business.
You're way ahead of the game at that point. You couldn't be more correct. So why would I want to choose, or anybody want to choose, National Pool Route Sales over other brokers? Because as you said, I mean, there's, I think, 3 main ones that I know of personally, you being one of them. Why would I want to choose you guys over someone else?
Sure. Well, it's one, we're the originator. Everyone else seems to use our paperwork, but that's just me being sticking the pin. But we have a core staff here. I have locations in California and Florida are the 2 main offices, but a staff that's here to support what's going on top of the sales agents that are highly experienced and have been around many times and many transactions, lots of experience. Our founder, Charles Baird, who, like I said, wrote the book, The Millionaire Pool Man, and then the video series. We give seminars at the Florida show, the Texas show, the California show, just about making money, not about us. We don't care. We just want you guys to make money and do a great job. And that's the one that we actually care and want you to make money. But the key when you're making a distinction is that from the time that the sale is done, we stick with those buyers. We're with you through the process because we want the sellers to get the money that they have, and we want that buyer to go on and have a successful business. And whatever we can do to help with that, that's what we do.
That's awesome, Chris. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that information. That's all the questions I have for you tonight. But before we sign off, why don't you let the listeners know where they can find you specifically, if they're in the Florida area or just your company in general?
Sure. The best way is the website, www.poolroutesales.com. We have testimonial videos up there. We have a frequently asked question with videos and written answers. A lot of information up there, and if you just can call into either go online and send it in, or you can call us up. We're at 877-766-5757, and we'll be able to direct you where you need to go, and we're happy to do it. We're here to help.
That sounds great, Chris. Well, thank you so much again for being a guest on the show tonight, and I'm looking forward to talking to you in the future.
All right, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. Thanks. Have a good night, Chris.
You too.
Bye-bye. That's a lot of great information, isn't it? You can see why it's beneficial to go through a brokerage to buy or sell your pools versus the alternative. Chris pointed out a lot about the protections that both parties receive to make sure the transaction goes smoothly and everyone's taken care of. I personally really liked how they offer continuing support for the buyer with their staff and extensive video collection to help the buyer make the most of the pool business. I certainly did not receive that with my pool route purchase. Is it possible to have a successful transaction with an individual? Of course, but it's more likely you'll be successful through a brokerage such as National Pool Route Sales. Thanks again for tuning in, and remember to stay safe and enjoy your pool.
That's all for tonight, and thanks for tuning in. Please send any comments or ideas, how-to and guest appearance requests, and product review suggestions to Eric@𝐶hlorine.com. Remember, if life piddles in your pool of dreams, just add some chlorine and keep swimming. See you next time.